Working with different generations can either be a really great experience or it can be a massive challenge. Having worked with millennials for more than 10 years now, I've got some pretty good strategies for us Gen Xers on how to manage that generation of people. I used to say it was by accident, but now I think it's by design that I've ended up working with millennials for such a long time. I manage my own digital marketing agency, and as such, I think just inherent in the fact that it's social media, it does attract a lot of millennials and now Gen Zs. So I've had a lot of experience working with that generation, and there's some certain things that I have, irks and quirks, that I have learnt over the last 10 years about working with this generation that I feel I should pass on to my fellow Gen Xers so that they can help navigate the jungle that is working with millennials. So here are the strategies or the irks and quirks I've discovered about this amazing, clever, but sometimes boggling generation. Number one, and it was the biggest hurdle for me to get through my brain, is they hate a phone call. So they would rather send 20 emails, 50 texts, probably a pigeon, rather than picking up the phone and having a conversation with someone. It's something that I have had to build into my onboarding process in my organisation, and I always have to say, perhaps you should just give them a call. I really think it's because they've grown up with the I generation, so they've had iPhones and messaging as a core part of their communication methods. So like I did as a teenager, I was always on the phone. They were always messaging. So they haven't had as much experience as us working with that telephone. So I would suggest this is a part that you really need to mentor and massage early in their workplace career. So I make them get on the phone regularly and have phone conversations. It's great that we're doing so many Zoom meetings and Teams meetings now because it does give them that kind of, that fast-paced interaction that a phone does. But some of the strategies I've seen them employ, which I think is really clever, is they really think about the conversation they're going to have and they actually write some notes down before they pick up the phone. And sometimes they need a drink of coffee beforehand just to calm their nerves, which seems counterproductive considering coffee is a stimulant. But there you go. So helping them get over that fear and managing a phone call is actually one of the first things you'll need to do when working with a millennial or hiring a millennial in your team, because they hate it. The second thing you need to understand about millennials is they really prioritise a life outside of work. And as much as I have said many, many times that I actually think work-life balance is bullshit, they do strive for that ultimate work-life balance. They do strive for having that really rich life outside of work, and so they will prioritise that. So I think that's great. I think that's great. It actually makes us reassess what is important. And I think certainly COVID has made us look at ourselves and look at how we've balanced and look at where our priorities lay. And even though we still love to work really hard, and certainly the millennials in my charge love to work really hard, they really do want those richer experiences both inside work and outside work. So if you can offer them opportunities to be able to have social occasions in work and team bonding, they want that relationship to be in work as well as outside of work. So yes, they will want to prioritise, hair appointments or catching up with lunch with friends. So giving them some flexibility around doing that will ensure that you have a really good relationship with a millennial in your workplace. So yeah, it's not such a bad thing. You get to go to lunch as well and you get to meet them and understand who they are as a human rather than having a really robotic relationship in the workplace. So I think it's a great thing. So that work-life balance is something they really prioritise, and so keep that in mind when you're structuring how you operate in the workplace on a daily basis, and give them some flexibility to leave early or start late so that they can get those things done that they really love in life. Another thing I've really noticed about millennials in the workplace, and it's something us Gen Xers and boomers have to keep in mind, we can be quite brutal, I think, sometimes. And when we have a situation that doesn't quite work in our favour, it tends to spill over. I tend to have aggravating moments in my office. I think everyone does, but we're very vocal about it. And if something doesn't go right, we're very direct. Well, certainly I am. And millennials have they're really tuned into their emotional intelligence. So even though that's really great, especially in mental health awareness and keeping a check on how you feel about a situation and making sure you're not put in a situation that doesn't make you comfortable. So what we do need to keep in mind, especially for those disciplinary chats or something that's a bit challenging, they're a lot more in tune with their emotions. So we need a lot more considered approach when dealing with millennials and less volcanic. One of the greatest assets for millennials in your workplace is that they are social media and tech ninjas. Obviously, that is a very broad statement, but most of them are on at least the top 5 apps that everyone is using in social media. So they will be able to navigate not only your awareness in social media, but potentially be able to contribute into your business's approach in social media. So they can be tapped into as a resource for all of their knowledge that they have grown up with. So you should use that asset in your workplace, but make sure that you are appreciating the extra knowledge and the extra skills that they bring to the table, and it's reflected properly in their job description. Another thing I've noticed with millennials is if you think that we're assertive as Gen Xers, well, the millennials are very assertive, and you don't have to ask what they want because they will tell you. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, they're very open to tell you if they are not happy in a workplace, if something doesn't work for them, if they need some time off or they need to do certain things or would like some more learning opportunities at work. I think that's great. It means I don't have to guess. So don't be afraid that they're coming at you with lots of questions and lots of requests, because this is a good thing. You don't have to wrench it out of them. You know exactly what they want, and there is less chance that they will leave your organisation because they've been really open and transparent about what they want. And if you haven't been at least listening to them, I'm not saying you have to give it to them all the time, but at least listening to them, then it's your fault if they leave, because you haven't been listening to them. All of these things will develop a really rich employment experience for millennials, and as long as you continue to be the shiny thing, then they will stay around and they will contribute amazing things to your workplace. But if you don't give them those constant experiences within the workplace and don't be that shiny thing, giving them new learning experiences, giving them new opportunities to learn new skills, and giving them the social opportunities that they're seeking really desperately within the workplace, then you will potentially lose them. And that would be a shame, because they're a great generation to work with. Leaning on from being that shiny thing in the workplace, you have to remember that millennials grew up with basically a computer in their pocket. So with iPhones and mobile phones, they have had this learning capability built into their brains. So you have to provide those constant learning experiences within the workplace, whether that's learning new skills or learning new ways of doing business, learning a new role, or even just learning more about their colleagues in the workplace. They have this thirst for learning and for knowledge. And if you don't fulfill that, then you have the potential of losing a really great staff member. So always provide those opportunities. I think it's something that we had to really work harder for as Gen Xers. We had to, provide rationales a page long of why this training would be important and would drive us forward. But I think millennials expect it as part of their daily tasks, as part of their job description. Learning and experience and having opportunities is part of what they expect in a role now. And I think that's great, because you're just building a better employee. So having those learning opportunities regularly, but also creating a feedback loop with your team of millennials to be able to understand what they want to learn and what are the important things that they want to experience, because it might be different to what you think. So you really do have to share those multiple levels with the millennials in your team. So the mum, the mentor, the colleague, the boss, the educator. Show them lots of different levels of yourself, because with millennials, they see work as not just a place where they go and churn out the sausages of whatever it is that you're doing in your workplace. They see it as an experience, and they want it to be a rich experience, something that adds value to their life. And if you're not showing those multiple layers and you're just one-dimensional, then they're not going to be hanging around for long, because they really do need to understand who you are as a person. And on the flip side, you need to understand who they are as a person to make a really good work environment work. My last observation on working with millennials, and it really is just an observation, there is a slight tip about it, but Mondays are generally hangover day. I know that used to be the case when I was younger. It's more about the millennials' age than anything, and also that they love to jam so much into their out of hours that it sometimes bleeds into work hours. Really, as a strategy, I would suggest not planning anything important on a Monday, and maybe just be a little bit softer on that day, because we all know what it's like to rock up with a little bit of a sore head. Doesn't mean the work's not going to get done. Maybe keep those pitch meetings for another day, or those important client meetings. But basically, millennials are great, if not a little bit boggling to work with. Just understand that they're a lot more sensitive, they require a lot more experience and knowledge in the workplace. They want a really deep relationship with everyone in their workplace. They don't just want to go and churn out sausages, like I said. They want to have a great experience. So if you do find yourself in a workplace with a lot of millennials, do not fear. They are still amazing people to work with and have work for you. You just need to be a little bit more aware of their differences and how they differ from us. And so therefore we can work together in a flow state. So that was my top tips and tricks of working with millennials and observations of working with millennials. I like to do videos that capture what it's like working in a digital agency. I also talk a lot about how small businesses should be operating in social media and kids in social media. So if any of those three things interest you, then please stay tuned for my next video.